What do you really know about the American founding? You know the names, Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton. But if you think the story of the United States begins with independence, you are missing 3 centuries of hidden history. The stage for American sovereignty was set not in Virginia or Massachusetts, but in the fiercely independent royal courts of Scotland and England. Prepared to uncover the ultimate paradox, the true, hidden destiny of the United States hinges on a single, astonishing historical fact. Every U.S. president, from George Washington to the present day, has a shared, traceable ancestral tie back to one remarkable European monarch, a line that runs directly through a forgotten queen of Scotland. Do you think you know the whole truth about America? Watch to the end and find out. Our story begins not in revolutionary America, but in the high politics of the 16th century. King Henry VIII of England, the first of the Tudor dynasty, was obsessed with securing his new throne after decades of bloody civil war. His ultimate peace treaty was sealed not with signatures, but with marriage. His daughter, Margaret Tudor, was sent north to marry James IV, King of Scotland, in 1503. Margaret was a political pawn, a fragile link intended to end centuries of cross-border conflict. She was the older sister of the infamous King Henry VIII, an English princess destined to be Queen of Scotland. Her marriage, celebrated as the union of the Thistle and the Rose, carried a profound stipulation. If Henry VIII died without an heir, Margaret's descendants would have a direct claim to the English throne. Within 10 years, that political chess game turned brutally real. James IV was killed fighting Margaret's own brother, Henry VIII, at the Battle of Flodden in 1513. Margaret, a young widow, became the Queen Dowager and regent of a perpetually hostile nation, caught between her English blood and her Scottish duty. She was far from a successful political ruler. She remarried quickly, lost her regency, and often relied on her fierce will and cunning to survive the turbulent Scottish court. But it was her biological legacy, not her political one, that would prove immortal. The king, the prophet, and the Jamestown Bridge. Margaret Tudor had 2 crucial descendants who ensured her bloodline's survival and its future influence on the American continent. Firstly, her son, James V, King of Scotland, whose daughter was the legendary Mary, Queen of Scots. Through this line, Margaret's lineage eventually gave rise to James VI of Scotland, who unified the crowns as James I of England in 1603. This is the king who would become the namesake for the first permanent English settlement in North America, Jamestown, Virginia, 1607. This direct connection, the Tudor-Scottish line leading to the king who sponsored America's founding, is a crucial start. However, the path to the presidential line is far more intricate and astonishing, involving a forgotten prophet and the simple, fertile land of Colonial Virginia. Margaret Tudor's blood passed down through another crucial line. Through various Scottish and English aristocratic intermarriages, it eventually reached a woman named Elizabeth Reade, born 1615. Elizabeth was a distant descendant of the Tudors and part of the English gentry, a lineage that included ancestors who fought alongside William the Conqueror and even stretched back to Alfred the Great. The Ancestral Nexus, the single thread. The true genealogical breakthrough happens not with kings, but with a colonial family. In the 1630s, Elizabeth Reade and her family left England for the burgeoning colonies of Massachusetts. Though she married a man named John Hall, it is through her first marriage to a man named Robert Reade that the true American dynasty began. Elizabeth Reade and Robert Reade's daughter Mildred-Warner was born in the Virginia colony. Mildred, in turn, married a planter named Augustine Warner, Jr. This Warner family became a core genetic pool for the Virginia planter elite. Their children and grandchildren married into the most powerful and prolific families of the mid-Atlantic colonies, the Lewises, the Madisons, the Randolphs, and most importantly, the Washingtons. This dense network of intermarriages created a genealogical singularity. Modern historians and genealogists have proven that every single president of the United States, from George Washington to the present day, has a shared, traceable ancestral tie back to one remarkable European monarch, a line that runs directly through a forgotten queen of Scotland. While not all descend directly through Margaret Tudor's immediate royal children, all presidential lines trace back to the same vast pool of British and European gentry that Margaret Tudor belonged to, and many trace directly through her descendants who settled in colonial America. George Washington's mother, Mary Ball Washington, was part of the Virginian gentry whose lines firmly connect back to the descendants of the early Tudor-era gentry. Furthermore, the connection between Presidents Franklin D. Roosevelt, George H. Bush, and George W. Bush is often traced back through the same complex network of intermarried New England and Virginia families who were themselves descendants of the early Tudor-era gentry. The paradox of liberty, the unseen hand of monarchy. The sheer statistical anomaly of this unbroken chain is what makes Margaret Tudor's story so powerful. An English princess, sent to Scotland as a political maneuver, ultimately created the single most influential ancestral bloodline in the history of the American Republic. The family she married into and the subsequent intermarriages ensured that the political leadership of the New World was perpetually drawn from the same ancient European stock. America prides itself on being a nation founded on meritocracy, rejecting the hereditary principle of monarchy. Yet the statistics show a stunning lack of genetic diversity at the highest level of its political leadership. The presidential family tree is less a wide-spreading oak and more a densely woven tapestry, stitched together by the descendants of a few thousand colonial families, many of whom trace their lineage back to Margaret Tudor's ancestral cohort. Margaret Tudor, the forgotten Queen of Scotland who struggled to rule her own country, became the unlikely, unseen ancestral fountainhead for the most powerful office in the modern world. Her legacy is not etched in a crown or a throne, but in the recurring, almost unbroken chain of blood that links the revolutionary leaders of the American Republic directly back to the very system of European aristocracy they fought to escape. Her story is the ultimate proof that in history there are no simple beginnings. The bloodline that defined American liberty was forged centuries earlier in a political marriage meant to end a war between two kingdoms, a marriage whose ultimate consequence was the dynasty of the American Presidency. The question is no longer if they are related, but what that deep, invisible history means for democracy today.